On today's Which Word of the Day, I am choosing Page Master, noun. Do you remember Page Master? Yay!
It sounds familiar. Was it Macaulay Culkin and Christopher Lloyd, and it was animated, and they go into books, and they have little books that follow them around? Sounds familiar.
Yeah, totally that. So the Page Master is a 1994, because we're old, a 1994 American live-action / animated fantasy adventure film, so it was a little bit of both, with Macaulay Culkin, Christopher Lloyd, Whoopi Goldberg, Patrick Stewart, Leonard Nimoy, Frank Welker. But yeah, it's about a little boy who uses statistics as an excuse to avoid anything he finds uncomfortable in life. And he goes to run an errand for his father, and he gets caught in the storm and hides in the library. And then this man comes up to him and he's like, I am the Page Master. And the Page Master is a mythical keeper of books and guardian of the written word. And he tests him. He trapped him inside the library. He has to battle his way through the literary classics, come to life as he finds his way home, and he makes friends with the 3 books.
You haven't even read that?
Wait, what are you doing with the book?
So he has the confidence to finish the story.
Hear now the words of the witches.
Can you hear the words of the witches? Yeah, the words of the witches.
Welcome to Words of the Witches, the Charmed podcast that will guide you through the lesser-known published lore of the Charmed universe.
In this night and in this hour, we call upon our fanboy power, bringing education and stupefaction to all of you.
Together, we will use our knowledge and reverence abundantly, but also find ourselves sassy and delightful.
Which is why we will truly be charmed.
Spell worders, yes, this is Words of the Witches, episode 139, and I am Kevin, your resident Charmed resource.
And I'm Sean, and I just love reading books.
Reading books, that's what we do. We're a literary show. Just a literary show about a TV show. This week, we're still continuing the Book of Three, Volume 2. We're almost near the end. This will be the episode guide section. But before we jump into that part, let's go over our poll from last week. Tell us what it was, Sean.
Best magic school. And our choices were Xavier's Institute, for whatever name it's being called this week, Hogwarts, Magic School, or the other one.
The UA from My Hero Academia.
Oh, yeah.
Any guesses on what one?
I'm thinking Hogwarts, but maybe Xavier's.
Yeah, so that's pretty accurate. I'll go over YouTube first. YouTube, we got 6 votes, so it wasn't too much, but 67% said Hogwarts, 33% said X-Mansion, and then the other 2 got 0 votes.
Oh, wow.
On Instagram, our main poll, we got 4 votes for UA High School. I thought that would be a little bit more popular because I thought it was a well-known anime, but I guess not. In the grand scheme of things, not so much. So 2% for that one. Then our Charmed Magic School got 35 votes, 19%. X-Mansion, I just called it, got 59 votes, 32%. And Hogwarts won at 87 votes, 47%.
Wow.
People love that Harry Potter.
Yep.
Are you ready for some manner keeping?
Sure. And actually, I will add something to that. I just thought of it.
Oh, okay. Nice.
There it is. Hogs Read by friend of the pod, Sean Tessier, is coming back. So on that podcast, he has people act out the voices of the characters. So read through the story, but have people actually speak for the characters. And on that, I am Peeves the Poltergeist. So if you haven't checked that out, you should check that out because it's fun.
Okay. I love that. Yeah, that's such a cool little thing. So on today's manner keeping...
You can't just vanquish an entire house, especially not our house. People are gonna notice.
Manner keeping.
Well, the problem isn't the manner. It's the manner in which it was treated.
A good witch is a clean witch.
If you follow the Instagram, or pretty much just Instagram and the Facebook now, I think, I always post little 1 minute or so audio clips from the podcast to kind of promote the episode. And I shared one on Instagram for this last one, Magic School. I tagged Rose McGowan in it, and it has Sean talking about wonderful, fun things about Magic School. And Rose McGowan re-put it into her story and shared it. And I said, thank you for sharing it. And then she said, thank you for making me laugh out loud. So Sean is so funny.
Sean is so funny. You look clean.
You look clean. So that was really cool that Rose McGowan shared that. I even found it on Reddit. Somebody posted it on Reddit. She's like, this is so funny what Rose McGowan shared on her stories. I'm like, oh, there, more promotion. All right.
Nice.
Like, hey, that's my podcast. You should check it out. Going back a little bit, there was a few episodes back when we talked about Paul Haas. And you talked about how Paul Haas was so fucking hot.
Yep.
And because I'm still, we had Michael Mays who played a Celerity Demon. We talked about Michael Mays in that Reddit shortly after that. And in the little clip, we talked about both. And I actually sent it to him. I texted him the clip. He's like, oh, so I'm not fucking hot? like, yeah, you are. So Michael Mays is really, fun and appreciative too. It's great.
Nice.
Go ahead.
So, I have been fucked by Trump because since he decided to shut down funding a week ago, the company that I applied for, they put the position on hold because they're afraid, since they get federal funding, because they help secure healthcare, they don't know the future of their company. So that's what happened there.
It's terrible. We are on fire. We knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, so hopefully, something comes about with that. Hopefully it comes off hold, or hopefully something else comes. Maybe I need to be the one who comes because I need to do sex magic some more.
Yeah. We need people to do something because this is ridiculous. But we got to do some fun stuff. We got to have some joys in life while we still can.
Yep.
So yeah, this week we are talking The Book of Three, Volume 2, Section 6, Episode Guide. And this is the largest section of the book. It spans pages 134 to 274. Because, it's literally like an episode guide. It tells you about every episode. And this book differs from the episode guide from the last book of 3 when we covered seasons 1 through 5. Because in there, they just gave episode summaries, air dates, writers, directors, episode quotes, and a list of the episode pun titles, which we went over. This book has all of those things, but now includes behind-the-scenes sections on almost every episode. Most of the time, these were like interview responses from the cast or crew that were relevant to it. It actually added a lot of added info and significantly decreased the content for the next section, which is behind the scenes, which I thought this would have been better in there. So I had to really contemplate how we're going to go cover this section.
Tell me about it, Janet.
So, much like we did last time, we will skip the episode summaries entirely and do the episode quotes with a primary focus on the episode pun titles. Most of this section we aren't going to cover at all. However, just because we aren't covering something does not mean it's going unread. I have still very much taken note of canonical issues. I have also taken note of anything that I find particularly interesting from the behind-the-scenes parts. But instead of being discussed in this episode, we will save them for next week, which will be our behind-the-scenes episode. Cool. Does that make sense? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's get into it. Sean, why don't you kick us off with the closing the door on season 6?
Closing the door on season 6 says, on screen, the 6th season of Charmed ended with a death and a birth. Oddly enough, it was the death and birth of the same character, Chris. Considering that his character partly existed to ensure that he was conceived, it wasn't surprising that Drew Fuller left the series at the end of the season, since Chris could not exist as both a baby and a full-grown man in the same timeline. But that didn't stop him from making visits in future episodes. Drew Fuller recalls a personal highlight from working on Charmed. The thing that sticks out most in my mind was when they told us there were a couple Make-A-Wish Foundation kids coming around. I had never been on a show old enough to ever entertain the possibility of having Make-A-Wish Foundation children to visit. They showed up and they were beautiful, and I never experienced anything like that in my entire life. How excited they were about seeing the Book of Shadows and walking through the sets and playing with Alyssa, Holly, and Rose, and Brian and me. They really had all these great questions for us. We weren't actors, we were them. 100%. I was Chris. I was just so affected, I was overwhelmed. I remember having to excuse myself. I went off into my trailer and I cried a while because they really grasped how beautiful life is. They're not sitting there feeling sorry for themselves. They're beautiful. They're happy. They're just so excited about life and being here and grateful for every little thing. It really puts things in perspective and on another level why every actor should cherish what they do. On so many levels, we don't even have an idea, to brush the surface. I was overwhelmed. One of the most profound moments on Charmed.
Yeah. That was really sweet, and it's really nice to that he felt so much life and warmth from these children who could have been very sad and morbid, but they took every day and cherished it, So that's pretty beautiful. I remember when I was a kid and hearing about the Make-A-Wish kids going, I was so jealous of them. I'm like, they're not bigger fans than me.
Oh my God.
And I know. I remember talking about that before. And I'm like, I feel like a horrible person, but I was like, oh, it was me. Yeah, I'm over it now. I'm fine. I'm glad they had the experiences. I'm glad they went, and I'm glad they got to have that. So, yeah. So let's talk about the Charmed episode title puns. Kick us off, Sean. Season 6.
Valhalla of the Dolls. In Norse mythology, Valhalla is the great hall where the souls of heroes who died in battle spend eternity. Valley of the Dolls is a book written by Jacqueline Susan. It was made into a film in 1967, and Sean has seen such film.
There's also a beautiful bisexual porn, Valley of the Bi-Dolls or whatever, from like the 70s.
Of course.
Forget me, ... not. A forget-me-not is a plant with small clusters of blue flowers.
Power of three blondes. Reference to the power of the Charmed Ones having passed into the hands of three fair-haired women.
Love's a witch. A pun based on the idea that, at times, life, not love, can be particularly difficult. And this is them doing this again where they're afraid to say bitch. They're afraid to tell you what the word is. I don't know why that is.
I know, it's pretty commonly accepted today. Like, it's more just a rude thing, not a curse anymore.
I mean, they literally say bitch like every other episode of Charmed.
Yeah.
I think people who are reading this book have seen it and heard it all on Charmed all the time.
Yep.
So
They even said it in a Harry Potter movie, for God's sake. That's so family friendly.
Yes.
Come on.
Right. Yeah.
My Three Bitches. My Three Sons was a TV series of the 1960s and early 1970s, starring Fred McMurray playing the widowed father of three boys.
Soul Survivor. SOUL, Soul Survivor. Reference to being the lone soul, SOLE, survivor of a tragedy, though in this case it refers to the saving of one soul.
Sword and the City. The TV series Sex and the City premiered in 1998. It was based on a series of columns in the New York Observer by Candace Bushnell.
Little Monsters, a reference to particularly difficult children. Also a movie released in 1989 starring Fred Savage and Howie Mandel. And remember the name that I had for this episode that I liked better, that they wish they called it instead?
I forget what it was, but I remember you talking about it.
Baby and the Beast would have been such a better title for this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Because of
Much
the Beauty and the
better.
Beast influence. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Baby and the Beast is my wishful episode name.
Crisscrossed. Crisscross means to move back and forth, through or over. Here it refers to traveling through time. Because why not?
Witchstock. The village of Woodstock, New York, lent its name to a historic rock music festival that took place in a nearby town in 1969. It's funny, I had someone in my job call me, and she's like, I actually lived in Woodstock for a little while. It's like, it's a very, very tiny place. I don't know how they fit all those people there. It's like, there's so many nicer places that they could have gone. So, it was pretty
Yeah.
funny.
That's funny. Prince Charmed. The character of Prince Charming appears in many fairy tales, particularly those centered around damsels in distress. And if you read fables, Prince Charming is divorced from like each of the princesses. They've all had him. That's their joke on him.
Nice. Used karma. This pun, based on the concept of used cars, refers to karma, which in Hinduism and Buddhism is the concept of determining a person's destiny.
Destiny. The Legend of Sleepy Hollowell. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is a novella written by Washington Irving in the early 19th century. It tells the story of a school teacher's encounter with a headless horseman. I've never heard of it.
No. I Dream of Phoebe. I Dream of Jeannie was a TV show in the 1960s starring Barbara Eden and Larry Hagman.
The Courtship of Wyatt's Father. The Courtship of Eddie's Father was both a movie, 1963, and a TV series, 1969 to 1972. The TV show starred Bill Bixby as a widowed father with a young son.
All these widowed fathers TV shows.
Yeah.
Hyde School Reunion. The Hyde in the title. I know. Oh, how clever. The Hyde in the title refers to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, a book written by Robert Louis Stevenson in the late 19th century. It is the story of a scientist who developed an elixir that could separate the good and evil in his nature, creating a split personality and resulting in the murderous Mr. Hyde.
Spin City. The original reference to this pun is that Sin City is a nickname for Las Vegas. However, the rhyme was also used as the title of a TV show that premiered in 1996, originally starring Michael J. Fox.
I remember that show. Richard
remember
Kind was
it.
also in that show, I think.
He's nice.
Crimes and Misdemeanors. Crimes and Misdemeanors is a movie written and directed by Woody Allen. It was released in 1989.
A Wrong Day's Journey into Right. Long Day's Journey into Night is an autobiographical play written by Eugene O'Neill in the early 1940s, though it was not formally staged until 1956, 3 years after his death.
Witch Wars. Star Wars was the first of a series of movies produced by George Lucas. The original Star Wars, A New Hope, was released in 1977. I have a canonical thing about this, but I'll just leave it at that for now.
All right.
Star Wars.
It's a bad, 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 bad world. It's a mad, 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 mad world is a film released in 1963 starring Spencer Tracy and an ensemble cast of comedic actors.
And they do have a whole Closing the Door in Season 7 section as well. And this was pretty much them confessing how disgruntled they were with the not knowing if they're coming back or not, and how they were treating this kind of like as a goodbye. Holly was very much, she said the girls were very emotional, and we did our last shot and everybody started clapping and the girls just started bawling, and I for some reason wasn't crying. I was just, nope. You know what, for some reason I had some feeling that it wasn't the end, and it could have been straight denial, but it worked for me at the time. We owe it to the fans to do it right, and so in a way we have the luxury of being able to do that here. And we have the responsibility of tying it up in a way that will make everybody kind of happy. So we'll see. It's bittersweet, definitely. So Holly was like refusing. She's like, it can't end this way. This isn't the end. I'm not satisfied. And I'm glad that, people recognize that. Season 7 would have been a terrible finale to the show. it just would have. The charmed episode title puns Season 7. A call to arms. Generally speaking, a call to arms is a battle cry announcing that it is time to take up weapons to defend oneself.
The Blair Witch Project. The Blair Witch Project is a hugely successful low-budget horror film released in 1999.
Cheaper by the Coven. Cheaper by the Dozen is a film released in 1950 about a rather large family based on the book of the same name. It was recently remade, with a sequel even starring Steve Martin. It's so funny when they say recently made because, when this book came out then.
Yeah. Not recent anymore.
Yep.
Charmed. A riff on the fact that pirates are typically portrayed as liking to say, "Arg."
6 feet under. 6 feet under refers to the depth at which the dead are traditionally buried in cemeteries. It is also the name of a TV series that premiered in 2001. In Greek mythology, Styx is the name of the river leading to the underworld Hades.
Once in a blue moon. A blue moon refers to the second full moon to appear in 1 month. Since this is a rare occurrence, the phrase once in a blue moon is generally used to describe something that is also rare.
Like terribly written plot devices.
Luckily, it's rare.
It's rare. Yeah. Someone to Witch Over Me. Someone to Watch Over Me is a classic song by George and Ira Gershwin.
Charmed noir. The term film noir refers to a film style emphasizing the use of darkness, light, and shadow. It is usually associated with crime movies. Noir is also associated with hard-boiled crime fiction. I've never heard it called hard-boiled crime fiction. What does that mean?
That's a strange turn of phrase. You just let it boil in that water for a minute before you eat it. I don't know.
Yep.
Before you crack open its shell.
Just put that script in some hot water.
Yeah. There's Something About Leo. There's Something About Mary is a film starring Ben Stiller and Cameron Diaz. And she's got this very interesting hair gel in that movie.
Witness protection. The United States Federal Witness Protection Program provides for the relocation of any witnesses of crimes whose lives would be in jeopardy if they testify.
Ordinary Witches. Ordinary People is a novel by Judith Guest published in 1976. The book was made into a film in 1980 starring Donald Sutherland, Mary Tyler Moore, and Timothy Hutton.
Extreme Makeover World Edition. Extreme Makeover Home Edition is a home makeover show that premiered in 2003. It aired opposite Charmed in most American television markets. Gasp!
It did. I remember. At the beginning of it, I'm like, oh, can't watch this. Gotta change to Charmed. I just remember being tired, like, let's make this family happy. Charmageddon. Armageddon is a biblical reference to the battle between good and evil that is predicted to mark the end of the world. But you also forgot there is the movie in there, too, that was also very popular. They didn't put that in here.
Yeah.
I could stay awake.
Oh, God. Don't. Carpe diem. Carpe diem is Latin for seize the day. The phrase was popularized by the 1989 film Dead Poets Society.
Showgirls. Showgirls is a film released in 1995 starring Elizabeth Berkley. I'm so excited.
Such a quality movie.
It's so quality. And it's got the guy from the Flintstones in it, too. Whatever his name was.
The 7-Year Witch. The 7-Year Bitch is a 1955 film starring Marilyn Monroe. It was adapted from the 1952 Broadway play of the same name. Note, the episode title is a nod to the fact that this is the 150th episode of Charmed, which takes place in the 7th year of the series. Whoa!
Yes. And for people who don't know, it's actually a 7-year itch, but bitch is funnier. Scry hard. Don't scry for me, Argentina. No. Scry hard. Die Hard is the name of a series of action movies starring Bruce Willis. Mm-hmm.
Little Box of Horrors. Little Shop of Horrors is a Broadway musical about a man-eating plant, which debuted in 1982. The play was based on the famous 1960 B-movie classic of the same name, starring Jack Nicholson. Really? You're gonna give it to him?
I know, because they're talking about the original black and white little short movie they made. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, because they mentioned the Broadway show, they could have mentioned the movie Broadway show, but whatever.
Yeah, because most people haven't seen the original. Like the musical movies, what made it popular.
Yeah, we need some Rick Moranis in here.
Yeah.
Some Steve Martin. All right. Freaky Phoebe. Freaky Friday is a film released in 1976 starring Barbara Harris and Jodie Foster. It was recently remade, 2003, with Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan. Weren't they doing a sequel? They're going to do a sequel to that one too, I thought, recently?
Yeah, that's what they announced.
Yeah, so...
Imaginary fiends. Young children often have playmates who exist only in their imagination, making them imaginary friends.
Death Becomes Them. Death Becomes Her is a 1992 film starring Meryl Streep, Goldie Hawn, and Bruce Willis. There's Bruce Willis again.
I haven't heard of it. What's it
And it's
about?
also a musical that's on Broadway right now in New York City.
Oh, there's a musical? I didn't know that. I don't bring it up every week in our other show.
No.
Something wicked this way goes. Something wicked this way comes is a line from Shakespeare's Hamlet. The quote has been used in various forms of pop culture over the years. Most notably, it is the title of a 1962 Ray Bradbury novel that was made into a film in 1983. Note, as the producers believe this could have been the final episode of the series, the title and the question mark at the end of it was chosen to mirror the first Charmed episode, Something Wicked This Way Comes. Yes.
So now, let's go to season 8, page 272, and talk about this.
So this one is from an asshole. It's from Brad Kern. And he talks about how when he was first working on the show with Constance M. Burge, they both had the idea of doing the door closing at the end of every season. And he regrets that they couldn't find a way to make it work for season 6, which I'm like, bullshit, Brad Kern. Like, just don't.
That's
close
what
on the
I was
hospital.
saying.
Yeah.
It's so... Even the page before this is what the author wrote. It says, and so Charmed ended with a considerable bang, but with also a quiet whimper. For each of the 8 seasons, the series has ended with a door, usually the front door to the manor, closing out the season. Though story requirements necessitated that the characters end the 6th season in the hospital with Chris's birth, the producers still managed to close a pair of hospital doors to fill that need. Bitch! Fuck that! The story did not... That's a story you can make up, dude! You don't have... It does not necessitate anything!
Right, just end on them coming home with Chris, or end on, I don't know, like the door accidentally popping open and Graham's ghost closes it. Something.
See, what's the thing that Brad Kern said here that made me mad too? He said, which is why I always felt badly that we couldn't figure out how to do it in season 6. It was just brutal. We had some doors closing though. So like, he always knew that they wanted to do it, but it's so stupid. Because like, I would have made it, like, you could have had the hospital scene, then it cuts to them like, coming home, and that's where probably like Phoebe and Paige are like, welcome home, baby, la di da di da di da. And then I think it'd be cool if like Leo was the one that closed the door, because you can see how happy he is with the family, but you know that he's thinking about revenge in the back of his mind, so he closes the door with a little bit of maybe a determined kind of unsettling glare. I would have liked
There
that.
you go. Mm-hmm.
Because he's got like the elder powers and stuff. He could have closed it in a fun way.
Yeah. Very true.
So there, I fixed it.
There.
All right, but let's get into these season 8 titles. Still charmed and kicking. Alive and kicking is a phrase used to refer to something that is lively. There are several anecdotal explanations for the origin of the phrase, one of which refers to the time during a woman's pregnancy when she starts feeling the baby kick.
Oh. Malice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland is the abbreviated title of the classic children's book by Lewis Carroll, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I hate that book. You have to be on something really strong to enjoy that book.
And some people say the same about the movie, but I can enjoy the movie okay.
Yes, I like the movie.
Run, Piper, Run. Run, Lola, Run is the English name of the German film Lola Rent, 1998.
Desperate House Witches. Desperate Housewives is a popular nighttime soap opera created by Mark Cherry that premiered in 2004. I was obsessed with that show.
I hate them because they took the title of longest running female women leaded whatever show, whatever it is.
By like one
They
episode.
beat Charmed by like one episode. I'm like, oh man. Okay, whatever, it's fine. Anyway, Rewitched. Bewitched is a classic sitcom starring Elizabeth Montgomery that premiered in 1964.
Kill Billy Volume 1. Kill Bill Volume 1 is the first of 2 films written and directed by Quentin Tarantino and starring Uma Thurman.
The Lost Picture Show. The Last Picture Show is a film released in 1971 based on the Larry McMurtry novel of the same name.
Ooh. Battle of the Hexes. Battle of the Sexes is a figurative phrase referring to the differences between men and women that often find them in conflict.
Hocus Pocus. Hocus Pocus is a phrase often used by magicians to showcase a trick. It is possible that the phrase originated from the Latin Hocus Corpus, This is my body! The Hulk is a titular character in the comic book series The Incredible Hulk, published by Marvel Comics. The character spun off into cartoons, movies, and a popular TV series, and everything Marvel blew up after this book came out. So
I'm surprised they didn't say a recent TV series.
I know, right? I mean, 1978 to 1982, I guess that was long enough away.
Yeah. Vaya con Dios. Vaya con Dios is a Spanish phrase meaning go with God, or may God be with you.
Mr. and Mrs. Witch, only the girl next door. That's Smash, but anyway. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, 2005, is a film starring Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie.
Payback's a witch. A play on words with a similar sounding phrase regarding the concept that revenge can be cruel. What is that phrase, I wonder?
I wonder. We can't say it because it's like Voldemort. You can't say his name.
You just did.
I know. I guess I can say Payback's a bitch too. Repo Manor. Repo Man is the title of a comedy sci-fi film released in 1984.
Repo the Genetic Opera wasn't out yet, huh?
No, it was not.
Okay. 12 Angry Zen. 12 Angry Men is a 1957 film based on a TV play of the same name that aired in 1954. Zen is a notable school of Buddhism.
The Last Temptation of Christy. The Last Temptation of Christ, 1988, is a Martin Scorsese film based on the novel by Nikos Kazantzakis. Greek.
Engaged and Confused. Dazed and Confused is a film released in 1993. Recently.
Generation Hex. Generation Hex. Generation Hex.
That's catchy. That should be in a musical.
It should be in a musical. Generation X is a term used to describe the generation of people, primarily in the Western world, born in the 1960s and 70s. Though the term had been in existence for decades, it was popularized in the early 1990s.
The Torn Identity. The Born Identity is a recent 2002 film based on the book by Robert Ludlum.
The Young and the Restless. Jung. Carl Jung was a psychiatrist credited with the development of analytical psychology. The Young and the Restless is a daytime soap opera that premiered in 1973.
When my grandma lived with us briefly, she used to be obsessed with daytime soaps, so she'd yell at me, Sean! Sean! Help me with the TV! And then I'd go have to put it on for her, then I'd try to teach her how to use it, and she'd be like, well, while you're down here, do you want to watch with me? I was like, no! I don't want to watch your shows.
my stories are on. Yeah.
No! Gone with the Witches. Gone with the Wind is a classic film released in 1939 based on the book by Margaret Mitchell.
Kill Billy Volume 2. Kill Bill Volume 2 is the second of two films written and directed by Quentin Tarantino and starring Uma Thurman. And you know who played Bill? David Carradine, who also played Tempest, peoples. So there's another connection. Yeah.
Yes. Forever Charmed is executive producer Brad Fuckface Kearns promised to the fans that the Charmed universe will live on after the end of the series.
All right. So there are all our puns.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Any thoughts?
It's straightforward. It's thorough.
Yeah.
Ish.
Because I read the entire section in the entirety with everything, I have a few thoughts. Blonde, the word blonde has two spellings. And I found that sometimes they wrote it Blonde, and sometimes they wrote it Blond. And I was like, this is weird, because I always spelled it with the E at the end, but blonde without it is still correct. But I was like, oh, that's weird. But The Power of Three Blondes, the episode title, was always spelled with an E, and they kept that accuracy, I guess, because that was the official script spelling.
Oh, cool.
And I was thinking, too, I was remembering how I found it odd that Drake can be human but still retain his powers. But I think it would be clearer if the focus was that he was given a soul, because human insinuates becoming like mortal, like a powerless mortal. But if you consider you just give him a soul, that would make him more like a witch, because they have human souls, but they can still use magic. You know, that would make more sense to me. But So now, let's go to Put That in My Canonical Hat.
Canonical.
I've got a few things. So in 610, this is more like a in Charmed lore problem, not something the book did. But how is Bianca mortally wounded, but she is a Phoenix witch who automatically revives when she's killed?
True.
I was looking into it because it was bothering me. So one fandom site says that the only magical way to kill a Phoenix is to remove their reconstitution power, the one that makes them come back together, which makes sense. But then there is apparently they could die from man-made objects or weapons too. I don't know where they got that. Maybe because of this episode being stabbed. I'm like, is that the explanation? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. 611, Witchstock. They said that Robin was killed by an energy ball again when it was her own fireball. And in Spin City, they say that Phoebe is on a mission to have the little girl that she saw in her vision quest. There's a problem there. Because she had her vision quest in The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and she did not see a little girl. She only saw that she was pregnant, not what gender she was having. The little girl stuff happened after the fact.
Yeah, in season 7, right?
Yeah, so I was like, your book isn't. You can't say that right there. 621 Witch Wars. I disagree that the reference made for the Witch Wars title is Star Wars. At the very least, it shouldn't be the reference, and I'll tell you why. First of all, there's no real connection to that title except for like name recognition of the Star Wars brand. Like, oh, Star Wars, Witch Wars, la la la. But I feel like the more appropriate reference is that the term Witch Wars, it comes up frequently in discussions about neo-pagan community infighting. So it's shorthand for the feuding and verbal sparring that witches have with each other when they're having a fight.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Because, yeah, that goes way back. We even saw that in Sword in the Stone.
Yeah. So I feel like that's more appropriate. So I don't know. I don't think Star Wars is it.
No.
Witchness Protection. Kira's name is spelled wrong again with the Kira. But that's it for canonical.
Okay.
So not too bad, but let's go on to next week's P is for poll.
Piper.
You mean it's just you and Prue, huh?
Phoebe? Phoebe, you there?
And a big hello to you too, Penny.
Come on, Patty. The rest is up to them.
Paige. My name is Paige.
Another P, imagine that.
P is for poll. This is another thing that kind of bothers me about Charmed lore, but we'll see what you think. So in Forever Charmed, they get Grams and Patty from the past and get them to say the spell to banish the Hollow, which is supposed to be a power of 3 spell. Only the power of 3 is supposed to banish it. But they go like, what if we get this and we can make our own power of 3? Do you think that they should have been able to banish the Hollow, the 3 of them? Grams, Patty, and Piper.
In the lore, each generation of witches is supposed to get stronger. So, from that aspect, it kind of makes sense that, like, Grams and Patty are not that far away, so they should be pretty powerful. But I feel like it's a very sister power. I feel like in the lore, like, the power of 3 is the sisters. Like, they are handpicked to be the power of 3 in a way. So I'm going to say no. They shouldn't have.
Yeah, I'm of that persuasion too. No, I don't, because just because you are responsible for creating the power of 3 does not make you the power of 3, and you cannot be a charmed one no matter how hard you tried. Now, if the spell was needing strong witches or very powerful magic, then I could see that. But saying that you need the power of 3 to do it, it just doesn't work, and you can't form your own power of 3 just because you're an ancestor or whatever. I don't agree, so no. Well, I agree with you, but I don't agree with the show. And that's it for this episode, everybody. So we'll see what your thoughts are on that, and we will finish off this book next week with behind the scenes, and then that'll be the end of the book of 3 volume 2. Oh, cool. Until then, Sean, where can we look at your stuff?
Find me on Instagram, Blue Sky, or Threads. Very sporadic posting right now, but you can also find our other show, Solving for X, an X-Men Task podcast, where we are balls deep in X-Men Evolution. We're getting towards the end of season 2.
Yeah. And You can find this podcast at Words of the Witches on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. And you can find my personal page at KJEEZY87 on Instagram. And yeah, so see you soon, spell worders. Your destiny still awaits.